What's up, guys? It's JZNES back again with another video. Today we're talking about Life is Strange. Finally, we're talking about Life is Strange. Not that I haven't talked about it before. I talked about it back when about 3 or 2 years ago, whenever before the storm came out. I talked about it briefly in my my series of backlog videos then, and a few other times. But I've never sat down and really went in depth on the original Life is Strange. I've always mentioned it here and there, and I mentioned it in my top 100 video game list as my number 10. That and Before the Storm I consider my number 10 game of all time. And there's a really good reason for that. And I've actually reviewed a lot of those big games on that list, like Persona 4 and like the Metal Gear Solid games, Tomba, Link's Awakening, another one. So my goal is to kind of get to all of those at some point. At least the top 10. I mean, some of the the bottom 100 ones, like, I wouldn't really have a lot to say, and I said as much as I could in that video, but I do really want to review maybe like my top, 30-ish games or something. Or at least the ones that mean something to me, and Life is Strange is definitely one of those that does mean something to me. I remember hearing about this game, I believe in maybe like a Metal Jesus Rocks video or something to that effect. I heard about it from a few places, and I'm just like, oh, this looks okay. And then I would hear about it, and I'd hear how good it is, and how crazy awesome it was, and I was like, really? Like, how is it going to live up to all this hype? And then, somebody had told me that, just, that you can actually, or that the game was actually getting a little bit rare and hard to find, or something to that effect, that it was going up in value. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look around, see if I can't get this for cheap enough. And I did one day at a disc replay, and I remember my friend Nick was there, and he was really encouraging me to get the game, and he said that it was super great. And I was like, alright. I was always making this joke, like, anytime I could fit the title in somewhere, I'd say, Life is certainly strange, and then he'd always be like, oh, it's so good, you gotta play it. And I just remember this, and then we stood outside of my friend's house that night for a long time, and I kept making the joke, and then I think the next day, or maybe maybe it was a while after, I don't remember. One day I just finally kind of sat down on a day I had free from my job, or made a day for it, because I could kind of do that at the time. And I sat there and just played the game through all in one long fucking day of a sitting. I think I started like in the early afternoon and just pounded through it. And it took me like late into the night to kind of get her done. Because this is like at least like a 10-hour game, if not like a 20-hour game. And I just kind of powered through it all in that one sitting. Maybe I started earlier in the day, I don't remember. But I definitely remember it being a one massive long sitting, and yeah. And I guess I should say, probably there will be spoilers for every episode of Life is Strange. This episode contains spoilers for every episode of Life is Strange. This is from the Blackwell podcast. So, yeah, spoilers. Don't watch this if you haven't played the games. I'll probably be spoiling some stuff. I definitely, just, if we're looking for a flat review, it's a 10 out of 10 game. Before the Storm is a 10 out of 10. Would play both of them. It's funny because my copy of Life is Strange 2 just got here today. I bought, they had a Valentine's Day sale for Square Enix on their website there, where there was a bunch of games, but I got Dragon Quest Builders 2, Kingdom Hearts 3, and Life is Strange 2, and they were all physical copies, and they were all for PS4, and they were all $10 each, so I got them for $30 altogether plus shipping, so it was like another $6, but not bad for fucking those 3 games. Some games I needed off my backlog, or to get onto my backlog there. And they ship pretty fast. I only bought them the other day, and they just got here. And my friend Banana came over, and he's like, "What's this? I got this package out here on my front steps." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, did my cat litter come or something?" And nope, it was that package from Square Enix I totally had forgotten about. But pretty fucking cool. And a good deal. So now I'm in the mood to play Life is Strange again. So I sat him down, because we've been talking about this for years, to play the first episode of Life is Strange. And that's how I want to kind of review these episodically, because there's a lot to talk about in each episode. And I feel like I can maybe do that enough justice. And the episodes only get crazier and crazier from here. But I really want to talk about the first episode and kind of go in depth on that. So that's what I'm going to do. And the first episode, I just want to say off the bat, is a fantastic way to start off the game there, because it's a fantastic introduction to the characters and the kind of the feel of what Life is Strange is going to be like. It introduces the mechanics pretty much right away. It gets you interested in the world and invested pretty much out of the gate. You get to kind of see little pieces of all the characters. Firstly, Max, as you're walking up to the lighthouse, and then you see this storm, and you're like, what's the deal with that? And why is this lighthouse so significant, and all this stuff? And then Max is kind of freaking out about the storm or whatever, and then she wakes up in class, and you see this guy, Mr. Jefferson, and he's talking about all this photography stuff, because she's in a photography class. And he's a famous photographer. You get to see a little bit of each character, like Victoria, your kind of villain character. Or not really a villain, she's the rival character, Chloe from Miraculous. Although there's another Chloe in this game, so that doesn't really... Or no, she is more like Chloe from Miraculous rather than Lila, who's just pure evil. But, yeah, so there's Chloe, I'm sorry, there's Victoria, not Chloe, there is Chloe later, but we'll get to her in a minute here. Victoria, and you kind of see her and her Goonies throwing shit at Kate, and so you kind of get this sense of Kate and her character. She's kind of quiet and alone, but you, if you check your texts out later, you actually see that she's one of your friends, and so that's pretty cool. And if you talk to her, you can choose an option after the thing. You can choose an option to ask her how she's doing, and she's kind of sad and that kind of stuff. So you kind of want to keep an eye on Kate. And that's what I've been telling my friend Banana there, is to keep an eye on Kate. Because of what happens in episode 2. So we'll get there. But yeah, so basically, you get to see that. You kind of get an idea for all the characters. You get an idea about Mark Jefferson. You get an idea for Max and what she's like, and she's kind of quiet. She's, you take the selfie, and then he tries to out her, like, oh, what's the answer to the question? And she doesn't know. And so it just kind of sets up this scenario. And so then, and spoilers. Seriously, I'm going to spoil, like, the last episode of Life is Strange here. If you haven't played the game in its entirety, just play the whole game. I swear, it's totally worth it. There's a line early on that's it very much leads you to know where Mark Jefferson's character is going. Because he says, I could capture any one of you in a dark corner, referring to photography, and capture your true person, and you can do the same to me, or something like that. And so the frickin' what are they called? Geek Remix, that's it. They caught on that. They figured it out. They're like, wow, I don't like this guy. He's a little off. But you wouldn't really notice it if you're not paying that kind of attention to that, which I wasn't the first time around. I was paying attention to everything but Mark Jefferson. And I think that the game intentionally sets this up, because everybody worships this guy at his feet. He's this big, famous photographer guy. all Max has for him is admiration, but that's what makes the twist later on so much sweeter, or so much more bittersweet, if you want to put it that way, because he is your hero, and he essentially is a very bad man. And, you know, yeah. So my point is they're kind of setting that up here, which is nice. They give you little hints throughout the story. They drip feed you stuff. So if you are paying attention, or once you go back and play the game again, you're going to notice what's going on. So following that, you have to go talk to Mr. Jefferson, and he asks you about your photo, and you have to tell him that you don't have a photo, and then he gives you all this crap about that. Victoria gives you a little bit of shit. Then you go into the hallway, Max puts in her earbuds, and you get to listen to this song that's playing right now as you're walking through the hall, and you can kind of see each of the characters that you'll be able to talk to later, and you get a like little brief intro to them. You can look in your locker, and there's like a few things in there. And eventually, you'll get to the bathroom, which is your main objective, where you're trying to go. And this is where things get really interesting, because Max goes to take this picture of this blue butterfly, which is a very significant thing in the game. This blue butterfly. I think it's well, it's kind of in the background here on the shirt, behind Chloe and Max here. But you see this girl who is Chloe. You don't find that out right away, but she is Chloe, and this kid Nathan Prescott, who has a lot of issues, and he basically they're talking, and you don't really know what they're talking about. But Max is she takes this picture of this butterfly, and then they come in. At first Nathan, and he's talking to himself, and then Chloe comes in trying to persuade him to pay up for something. She's trying to threaten him, and then he pulls a gun on her, and he shoots her the first time around, and Max like holds out her hand to stop it, like just like this, and then time reverses itself, and she's in the classroom again, and she's like, wait, what the fuck's going on? So you do the same thing. You take this out. Well, you see that all the same things are happening. Victoria's phone rings, etc., etc. They throw the ball at Kate, the piece of paper, which says, "Oh, we love your porn video," by the way, which is a very, very mean thing to say, considering what happens in episode 2 and what you actually find out what Kate's video was or whatever. Actually, and there's a website, katesvid.com or something like that, which is funny because it's still around as far as I know, and it like is a real website that ties into the game because it's on the mirror in the second episode there. Anyway, so now you're back in class, and you didn't know the answer before, and you talk to Mr. Jefferson again, and you listen to the answer this time. Then you have to rewind, so you kind of are getting a feel of your time powers and how they work. You can rewind to significant points. So it's kind of a slow build tutorial on how to do this while you're still playing the game and still interested. And what's interesting is there's a lot of ways to go about this game. You can be an explorative type like my friend Banana was, and my friend John was definitely an explorative type as well. But also, he had the weirdest tendencies of playing through this. I've seen so many people play through this thing. My friend John played through it with me. My friend Jameson played through it with me. My friend Banana played through it with me. I played through it like 3 times or 4 times or something, at least. So yeah, I've seen it played through a lot of times. I think even somebody else played it through with me that I'm not thinking of. I got my friend Mayab to play it, and he loved it too. So yeah. Anyway, but what was I gonna say? So there's a lot of ways to go around this, so you can explore a lot of things. And if you talk to certain people, they'll talk to you later. If you don't talk to them, they won't talk to you later, kind of thing. So you explore little elements of the world and whatnot. But one of the interesting things is that Mark Jefferson has like a set amount of dialogue, and then I think he'll like, I don't know what he does. He just stays quiet or something. But but my friend John wanted to listen to every little thing that he said, which was just funny. And he wanted to look at every missing persons poster too, for the Rachel Amber posters, even though they were all the same things. He thought maybe that would do something or whatever. But I thought that was really funny. Anyway, um, so yeah, you're in the classroom, and then eventually you get the right answer by rewinding, and then you can tell that to Mr. Jefferson, and then he thinks, like, oh, you knew the answer all along, and then you have to do the same thing later when you're having your second or third conversation with him. You'll go talk to him. You won't know what to say. Then you rewind, and you can say the thing. He gives you a John Lennon quote, like "Life's happening, something something," while you're on the sidelines, or something to that effect. Um, and so he gives you that quote. You quote it back to him after rewinding, and then he's just like, "Man, you're just on your game today." So then he's really impressed by that. Um, and then you get the opportunity to go and save Chloe again. So that's cool. And this time you manage to, after maybe rewinding a few times, because it took me a few times initially, and it took my friend a few times initially, you like move a cart, you find this hammer, you smash this fire alarm, and the fire alarm goes off, preventing Nathan from killing Chloe. So you've altered history and altered the course of things to save Chloe, but at what cost? That's what the game's going to be about, is what the cost of that action was. So you go forward, and once you get out of that room, David Matson, who you end up finding out later is Chloe's stepfather, starts harassing you about being in the bathroom while this fire alarm was going off, and he thinks that's really suspicious. So then your principal talks to you, and you can either rat Nathan out, or you can not say anything and just hide the truth, which is actually what my friend Banana chose to do this time around. I usually report Nathan, but I've made a lot of different choices both times, and I kind of know how everything plays out anyway, either way, for most choices. So the way it ends up going is, if you report Nathan, and you tell the principal about the gun, he's like, Nathan Prescott wouldn't have a gun, and everyone kind of turns on you, and they think you're lying or whatever. But if you don't report him, you get some interesting like little dialogue with Chloe later at the end of the episode about how you didn't tell and this and that, and a few different things happen because of that as well. And you get a different text from your mom, either way you do it, and the principal says different things. So there's this system, as you'll notice, of different dialogue, and it'll kind of change the story, and change your interactions with characters and whatnot. And you can always rewind and choose whatever choice you didn't choose, but you're eventually going to have to choose one choice or the other and stick with that choice to progress. So then you go out onto the campus, and this is pretty much your introduction to all of the characters if you want it to be. You can go straight for the objective, and most of those characters will be locked off to you for the future. And there's only a few times that you see most of every one of those characters, but so yeah. But it's interesting because you get to do a lot of little things there. Like, there's this girl, Brooke, and she's got a drone, and you kind of have to, like, sneak into her backpack and figure out what kind of drone it is to reverse time to impress her that you actually know, oh, this is this kind of drone. And then she'll be cool with you because she's kind of stuck up before that. She doesn't really, like, want to have you touch her drone because it's expensive and means something to her, and she's snobby, and she doesn't think, oh, like, she's like, Max isn't going to know what this is all about. And then of course, Max makes a fool of herself. Oh, it's a weapon, right? And she's like, no, you're on too many conspiracy theory websites or whatever. And then, so you have to reverse time and kind of game the system to figure out the knowledge. There's Hayden, who kind of doesn't really do a whole lot. He just kind of gives you some information on Nathan. And everyone always talks about Rachel Amber, basically. She's kind of omnipresent throughout Blackwell because she's disappeared. And that's why there's all these missing persons posters everywhere. And there's always something about Rachel Amber kind of everywhere, and everyone's always talking about her and this and that. So Hayden's just kind of there for that and talk about her and Victoria and stuff. There's the skater kids, who you can impress by talking to the one guy and then using his knowledge and going back and then saying that back to him, like, you know, the name of the tricks or whatever, and then this guy totally botches his trick, and you can take a picture of him, and that's an optional thingy you can do. There's a few moments of calm where you just kind of sit there, like the drone is kind of one of them, where it'll go around and just show you everyone. There's a moment of calm where you can, these moments of calm are basically where you can just sit and the game will shift camera angles like all over the place and like just show you different things. It's just a moment of calm. You just sit there and kind of take in the atmosphere and the music and whatnot. And Max will say a few things and reflect on what's been happening and this and that. So, is this even still going? Okay. So, yeah, basically, it just, it's a nice introduction to all the characters. There's, Daniel, who you can let sketch you, and then he'll put it on a website that you can actually see on a computer later, and they'll bring it up a few times in dialogue. If you let him sketch you, Warren brings it up later, like near the middle of the episode when you talk to Warren, he'll bring that up. But you know, if you don't, then he just won't bring it up or something, you know, that kind of thing. So you kind of change having a lot of dialogue options there and whatnot. There's Stella. She just kind of tells you a little bit about Mark Jefferson, and this is where you should also be getting a few clues that he's kind of a messed up individual, because she's saying how he was sleeping with students, even though, well, I mean, we're not for sure on that, but she says that him and Rachel Amber, you know, did things, but she also got that from Victoria, who she says is a reliable source, which we end up finding out Victoria is not a very reliable source. She actually even kind of pits two people against each other later on, as we'll see. So, yeah. Anyway, so, but it's just giving you a little more into his backstory, Mark Jefferson and whatnot, and just kind of seeing what kind of teacher he is and whatnot. Maybe giving you the idea that he's not necessarily the best teacher. But anyway, not that he's not a great teacher. He's not a great person. And then there's don't remember his name, but there's the guy who has his book of his portfolio, and he won't let you look at it unless you know, like, the name of this guy who did this, the fallen soldier or something like that. This portrait or this picture or whatever. So you have to know that, and then he'll let you look at his sketch or his portfolio. So yeah, and then you could miss any one of those, and then you will have like less or no dialogue options with them later. And then you go into the second part of the campus, back towards the dormitories. You find Alyssa, who after you come out of the dormitories, you can save, and you can kind of save her in every episode, and that's kind of her thing. By rewinding time, you can like warn her or help her out, not get into a bunch of accidents. Kate's there again, and you can kind of talk to her again, which is nice. And you got Victoria and her crew kind of blocking the way. So it's one of these early on puzzles where you kind of have to figure out, like, hey, I can use my time travel powers to do lots of things. So the puzzle is basically you have to get this paint to spill on Victoria so that she moves out of the way, and you can get into the dormitory. So you pretty much instantly see that the sprinklers are going to be a part of this. And there's a valve in this room that's kind of off the beaten path. So you go over there, you find that. But then if you go over there and just activate it, you'll notice the cutscene will show you specifically like, hey, the paint bucket is important. So you have to rewind time and then tamper with the paint bucket so that when you activate the sprinklers, Victoria will be standing up. And then the paint bucket will fall on her. And then the thing about that is you can either choose to take a picture of her and make fun of her, or you can comfort her, and that'll earn you good points in her book, which she's been a bully to you and just mean to you the whole time. And there's really, you feel compelled to just take the picture, post it, and make fun of her. But you can also be the nice person and not do that. Which, of course, the first time I chose to take the picture, I believe... Actually, I chose to take the picture, I believe... No, I think I comforted her just to be nice the first time. But one of the other times, I know I took the picture. I know a bunch of my friends usually take the picture first, and even Banana did this time, and then he reversed and comforted her, but you'll still keep the picture, which is nice. So and then you go into the dormitory, and you go and find your room, and there's a lot of things you can do in your room. You can check out. You have to grab your flash drive. That's why you're there. But you end up finding a note that says that Julia has it. Or Dana has it. Julia's there. They're roommates anyway. So, you can kind of look around and get a feel for Max and Chloe's relationship in the past. And what Max was like and her relationship to her family. And you could kind of just have a few moments of calm there, too. You can water your plant, which I don't remember if that actually helps your plant or not. There's a way where you can save the plant, and I can never do it. I never know how to do it. I think I water it too much every time. I don't know when you're supposed to water it and when you're not supposed to. So, I don't know. Whatever. You can play your guitar, and it'll play the little song. You can turn on the music, and it'll play one of the songs. Which is pretty cool. There's just a lot of little things you can do there and interact with. And then you leave, and then you have to help Julia and Dana because they're having this argument because Victoria fucked up their Julia and her boyfriend's relationship or something. So you have to get proof about that so you can get into Dana's room, so you can get your flash drive. So you go to Victoria's room, and you can snoop around there, and there's this great, stupid, fucking terrible line where if you look at her TV, Max is like, I could totally watch Final Fantasy Spirits Within. You know, that's one of the most underrated sci-fi films of all time. I don't care what anybody says, because the game is made by Square Enix, or published by Square Enix, which is so dumb, and that movie sucks so bad. But yeah. You can mess with her photos in there, and then she'll notice that later and like graffiti your room or whatever. I think that's maybe in the second episode, I'm not sure. But yeah. So there's a few things you can do in there, and then you have to print out the photo and whatever. Or print out the email so you can give to Julia so that she'll let Dana go. Also, I've heard it mentioned a bunch of times, but how does she lock her in her room? That's not how locks work. You lock from the inside of the room, not outside of the room. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway. So, then you get to go and see Dana. You get your flash drive back. You can see on there, there's like a few things. And later on, they mention Akira in the Twilight Zone, which is funny because I literally just saw Akira like last year. And I do need to still watch the Twilight Zone all the way through. But, and they mentioned Cannibal Holocaust too, which is like this terrible movie that fucking a turtle like was destroyed in or whatever. It's terrible. Anyway, So you can see that all on the flash drive, and he's got this folder named Max, which is a little disconcerting. There's always kind of this stalkerish side to Warren. Like, he's a nice enough guy, but there's a lot of things, and especially you see this, spoilers, in the final, the nightmare sequence at the very end of the game. Max has this fear. If you, like, go to this offbeat locker that's supposed to be Warren's locker, you see, like, all these pictures of Max in there. And it gives this sensation that she fears that Warren is kind of, like, a little too obsessed with her, or something to that effect. And that he's just sort of a stalkerish guy. But Warren tries to be a nice guy the whole time, for the most part. But, yeah. But he's a little off sometimes. You know, you get strange vibes off of him. He's just kind of an awkward kid, I guess, is really what it is at the end of the day. But, like, I like Warren, and he's a nice enough guy. It's just a kind of an interesting thing. In the second episode, actually, you can look out the window and you see Warren kind of watching you from a distance. So he has these little things of stalkerish tendencies, but he's really a cool guy when it comes down to it. So just an interesting thing to notice. So you can also discover there, Dana has a pregnancy test. She'll get really mad the first time you discover it, and then you could rewind and ask her about it, and then she'll feel more confident with you. You just kind of play it off like, oh, I heard this rumor or whatever. And what's cool is actually, I forgot to mention this earlier, but and my friend Banana kind of figured this out organically, but there's actually like a room chart of whose room is whose, next to Julia and Dana's room, so you can kind of figure out, like, hey, this is my room, this is Victoria's room, when you have to know to go there or whatever. So yeah, so that's neat. It's just something I wanted to mention. Anyway, yeah, so then you exit, and you go over to the parking lot where Warren is, and you can talk to Julia again and kind of comfort her about her situation. All of the license plates are references to shit like the X-Files, the Twin Peaks, and the Sopranos, a bunch of stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And you kind of can see, like, everyone's vehicle. Like, certain vehicles there actually are significant. Frank's RV is there from later. Frank, you can draw on it, and it'll be there for, like, most of the game, which is pretty funny. And you can see Chloe's truck there a little early, and she's put missing posters for Rachel Amber on, like, most of the cars. And you can see a bunch of them in this box in the back or whatever. And then when you talk to Warren, it activates this scene where, well, first you talk to Warren, and, you know, he's nice, and you just kind of bounce references off of him and whatnot, and he asks you about the movies and all that. But Nathan comes towards you. Max is about to tell him about the powers or whatever. Nathan comes towards you and starts fucking shit up, and Warren kind of stands up for you. And then Max kind of tries to distract him, Nathan that is, and try to push him off. And then Chloe comes around to save Max, which is this nice full circle effect of, she didn't know that Max saved her earlier, but it was like kind of fate and destiny intervening there. So then Max gets in with her, and they drive off and whatnot. And Warren basically still stands up for you, and that's pretty cool. So but yeah, then you kind of reunite with Chloe, and they have this moment where she's like, oh, you didn't call me and all this stuff, and I needed you, and that kind of stuff, because Max ended up moving away to Seattle, like a while ago, like when they were younger or whatnot. So, and Chloe felt pretty abandoned at that point, and that's kind of the basis for the prequel, Life is Strange Before the Storm, which I'll also be covering at some point. So, yeah. So then after that, you kind of hang out at Chloe's house for a bit. You get to see her room, and you get a lot of remarks about how things have changed and this and that, and there's a whole little side quest there where you're looking for her CD, and you end up finding it in this box, and there's this picture of Rachel Amber and her in there, and Chloe kind of grabs it away, and she's like, it's required that you find this photo because the CD's in the same box, but Max is like, you two were obviously good friends, and Chloe's like, that's putting it mildly. So, and as we'll see in Before the Storm, they were obviously much better than good friends. They were very, very much interested in each other romantically and whatnot. And I mean, that's the way I always play Before the Storm. You can play it a totally platonic way, but I don't feel like that really plays to the gravity of what happened between them, and I feel like the other way is definitely more canonical. So yeah, so there's a lot you can look around. You can kind of see some different things about Chloe, and there's a lot of like little interesting nods to what's going to become of Chloe, and kind of what kind of journey she's going to be taking throughout the game. A lot of little quotes and whatever strewn about, which is pretty good. And eventually you get the CD in, and she's just like, hey, go find your tools because your camera broke earlier. That was a thing I forgot to mention. So you get to go throughout her house, and there's a bunch of optional shit that you can do that my friend Banana totally skipped over. You can go into Chloe's mom's room, and you can save a bird in there by opening the window. But Banana didn't do that, so we're going to miss a lot of that later on. You can find a bunch of little things about Joyce, Chloe's mom, in there, and then some stuff about her dad and her stepdad and this and that, and you can go to the bathroom and like look at a few things. Same with a lot of the stuff in the living room, the kitchen and stuff. It's just like a lot of stuff. You can see, like, you can listen to a voicemail on the answering machine. What's really significant though is the stuff inside the garage. Now inside the garage, that's where you get the tools. You have to do this little puzzle where you have to put a piece of cardboard under the toolbox. Because the tools are up on the washing machine that you need. So then you hit the washing machine, they fall down. But there's a great little reveal in like one of the first drawers that you can get to, which you find out Chloe's stepdad is actually the David Mattson who was harassing you earlier about the pulling the fire alarm or whatever. So you figure out it's this guy, this like really mean guy. Oh, and I forgot there's a part where when you're leaving earlier to go to the parking lot, he's harassing Kate, and you can step in or take a photo. And stepping in is actually the right option if you want Kate to be more on your side there. If you just take the photo, then Kate gets really mad, and she's like, oh, you should have stepped in and done something. Thanks for watching, or from the sidelines, Max. My friend Banana was smart enough to step in, so good for him. So yeah, so you find out it's David, this guy who's harassing everyone and is kind of on everyone's bad side. And you can look at a few cabinets, and you find out that he's got security monitors and cameras placed around the house. So that's interesting. He's got secret files up on top of a thing that you can drop down and kind of look into, and he's got like pictures of Kate and stuff in there. So you can see a few cool little things like that. You eventually get the tools. You end up not being able to fix your camera, Chloe gives you hers, and she ends up finding out that you were there in the bathroom and you're the one who saved her, and this and that. So eventually David comes home while they're rocking out, and then you can hide in the closet, or if you don't get to hide in the closet, you just kind of get a sort of different thing. But there's a few different options. If you hide in the closet, you can just hide in there. Then Chloe's kind of mad at you later for just hiding. But I think she's less mad at you about that. There's ways where you can blame her, but my friend Banana chose to not blame her and instead take the blame after hiding in the closet. So that was pretty much the best option, and that's where Chloe kind of was the most happy with Max, I thought. Now, usually what happens in my playthroughs is that David will hit Chloe, and this becomes a big sort of thing later on in the story, and this is a lot of the fire that Chloe uses against him the whole game, like, hey, he hit me and that was wrong, and but it'll be interesting to see a playthrough where that didn't happen, because Max took the blame instead of Chloe. So yeah, interesting stuff there. But so yeah, it was a bit more of a sympathetic route in terms of Chloe was just more, well, she was happier with Max because she didn't tell about the about all of that, and she stepped in and took the blame. So that was pretty cool. So then they sneak out to go to the lighthouse of all places, which is funny. And Chloe kind of, or Max asks, what's the deal about Nathan? And then she kind of has this freak out. She sees the storm again. She sees this doe, or this deer, a ghostly deer going up towards the lighthouse, which is interesting. We'll get back to that in a further episode, a future episode, that is. About what the deal with the deer is. Or the theory, anyway, about what the deer is. And then she realizes that the storm is in a few days, and she tells Chloe all about her powers and whatever. And Chloe starts to believe her when it starts snowing, because it's like summer, and it's like 80 degrees out, and it starts snowing. And so then we get this nice little montage scene ending thing of all of the characters and how they're doing. And then the credits roll. And that's the end of episode 1. And yeah, it's a great introductory episode. There's a lot that happens and a lot that gets set up really fast. And it's kind of like maybe the worst episode, but it's still a really great episode, but worse by default. Like, every episode of Life is Strange is pretty great, and there's so much that happens in each of them, but it's the one with like the least like insane shit happening, even though a girl gets shot and Chloe gets hit and all this stuff. Like, the other episodes just get really, really fucking crazy from there. But I think it's like the perfect introductory episode, and it definitely gets people invested in the story that only skyrockets from here. And I think it gets them hooked on the mechanics and everything. So I think it does a really good job. Obviously, the music is fantastic in the whole game, but I just like, even especially here, these are some of like the better songs. The first one, when you're walking through the hallways, is fantastic. Crosses, which you can play later on your guitar and in your room, is a great song. And I love the one that ends the episode, because it's also the one that plays on the bad ending, or the well, I won't get into that, but one of the endings it plays on. So yeah, basically, yeah, it's a great introductory episode, and it gets you kind of ready for what's to come. And there's a lot of really subtle hints that'll pay off later. And I think it's fantastic. It's it's a great introduction to one of the greatest games out there, and one of the greatest story games. I like how this game has cinematic elements. It still lets you play around and explore a lot, but a lot of the game is about the story and you making these choices to kind of do different things and affect the story in different ways. And I think that's really cool. So yeah, as a first episode, very good. The game graphically looks really solid. I always liked the art style. I always thought that was really good. Um, the gameplay, I like how it's simple and and yet there's enough there to kind of keep it very interesting. It's mostly just walking around and whatnot and reversing time in certain special ways and situations, but I still think that's really cool and that it's a great mechanic, and especially it's a great mechanic for people who aren't that familiar with video games. So it's a very good starting point for people who just want a good story in a game. Life is Strange is certainly one of those. So, and the story is very interesting and the characters and all that. So, yeah, episode 1, very, very solid, very great, and I'm definitely looking forward to talking about the other episodes when I can get into even more spoilers and talk about even more stuff and kind of connect the dots and whatnot. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So, yeah, stay tuned. I'm not sure how frequently these are going to be. I'm not sure if I'm going to do them just when my friend Banana beats these things, or if it's going to be I'm going to play through some of it, or what. I do want to get to these at some point. It was just an idea that I had doing all of the episodes of Life is Strange, and then Before the Storm, which also has another 3 episodes, so that'll be 8 altogether, plus Farewell, so that's 9. Um, yeah. So, but I thought it'd be better to do them in individual episodes so I can kind of react specifically to what's going on in those episodes and connect the dots a little bit better because there's a lot to talk about. So yeah, I just feel like that works better. So until next time, this is JZNES saying keep your classics, stick around for more reviews, underrated games, and I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ